Unexplainable encounters. 3 spine-chilling true stories of sinister eyes watching you. The shadows were thick in the Sanders family's living room, where 17-year-old Danny hunched over the kitchen table, the dust of their old house pressing down like a weight on his chest. It was the kind of silence that felt alive, as if it bore witness to something unseen. Each tick of the clock drummed a warning in his heart. A flicker caught his eye, a shadow darting past the window. Just his imagination, he muttered. Or was it? Evenings in their crumbling suburb came with an unshakable heaviness. The air grew thick with unspoken tension as the last rays of sunlight disappeared. Strange sounds began to filter in through the cracks. The whispers of the dying community wrestled with the breeze. It was just the wind, wasn't it? Danny's pulse quickened each time a twig snapped outside, flickering thoughts of escape coursing through him. He was alone here, surrounded by unsettling familiarity. Then the diary surfaced. It was an artifact from the attic, the dusty cover beckoning as if it knew secrets he needed to learn. Each page turned revealed twisted tales of a neighbor who, at first glance, seemed harmless, a man fond of watching, always watching. Goosebumps prickled his arms as he read about the frantic paranoia that gripped another young boy, echoing Danny's own creeping dread. The neighbor, what was he really capable of? Darkness crowded the corners of Danny's mind as doubt festered. "You're imagining things," his friends would say, leaving Danny drowned in the isolating silence of skepticism. Later that night, as the clock struck midnight, the comfortable noise of his home swirled into something much darker. He could almost feel the eyes boring into him, an unwelcome invasion into the sanctuary meant to keep him safe. It was too much. The suffocating walls closed in. Danny bolted from the house, descending into the unknown streets that loomed outside dilapidated buildings and forgotten lots. The urban decay echoed his spiraling anxiety. But as he ran, he felt it, an unseen presence mirroring his every move, patiently tailing him like an invisible predator, waiting for the right moment to strike. And then, from the corner of his eye emerged a figure cloaked in darkness, standing rigid at the edge of his home. A mask concealed the man's features. He felt an icy grip on his heart. Could this be the monster from the diary? The reality weighed heavy as folklore thundered in his mind. The stories had warned him, yet he had never truly believed. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. Danny's world shrunk to that singular moment of terror, uncertainty clawing at him. He had a choice: escape or confront the creeping dread. How could he leave his parents behind? Where would they be safe if he abandoned them? The urban landscape felt alive, buzzing with sinister whispers as he wrestled with his decision. The night's heavy breath coiled around him, amplifying his panic. This was his home, yet something wanted to turn it into his prison. What would he find if he dared to uncover the truth? The mask behind the shadows beckoned, leaving Danny standing at the edge of a choice that could shatter everything. The chilling question hung in the air like an ominous cloud. Was he about to awaken a terror that could consume them all? Danny's breath hitched in his throat as he stared at the figure, his heart pounding like a drum. He wavered between freezing in place and bolting into the night, his instincts screaming at him to run. But the dark figure stood still, the mask glinting ominously in the low light that filtered from the street lamp. The cacophony of questions surged through his mind. Who was he? What did he want? With a sudden surge of courage, Danny's feet propelled him forward, the weight of the diary's warning heavy in his thoughts. "Why are you here?" he shouted, his voice wavering. Silence engulfed him, the world growing eerily quiet as he waited for a response that never came. The figure remained motionless, an impenetrable wall of shadow, making Danny's blood run cold. Then, almost imperceptibly, the figure began to move. It stepped forward, gliding toward him as if gravity held no sway over it. Panic surged through Danny's veins as he realized his mistake. He had dared to challenge a mystery cloaked in horrific guise. He turned on his heel and took off running, legs pumping furiously as he dashed down the empty street. With every stride, he felt the presence behind him, relentless and unyielding, a phantom predator hunting its prey. The shadows danced around him, stretching long and ominous as he raced into the arms of darkness. Danny veered into a narrow alley, desperation fueling his flight. His thoughts spiraled as he navigated through littered debris, heart pounding like a war drum. Would he escape, or would the mask follow him, relentlessly pursuing? He skidded to a stop as he reached a fork in the alleyway. There were two paths ahead, one veered left, an escape into the unfamiliar, and the other slashed straight ahead into a deeper darkness. For a heartbeat, everything stood still. Then, from behind him, came the unmistakable sound of footsteps, slow but insistent. Fear knotted in his stomach, spiraling tighter. Was it the madman from the diary? No, more unrelenting, a hunter who stalked not only the prey but the very fear it induced. He took the left path, adrenaline coursing through him. As he ran, his mind raced, recalling the stories shared in the diary, the whispered warnings of eyes lurking, waiting to feast on fear. Danny felt every ounce of terror thrumming in the air. He was sweating now, cold beads trickling down his back. He dared to glance back over his shoulder, heart sinking when he saw the masked figure, indecipherable and frighteningly close, gliding silently behind him. He needed a place to hide. A shiver of recognition coursed through him. There was an abandoned house up ahead, long dilapidated but offering potential shelter. With every ounce of willpower, he pushed through the heavy door, heart crashing against his ribs as it creaked ominously. Darkness engulfed him, and he stumbled inside, desperately searching for a place to hide. In the silence, the world outside faded only to be replaced by the loud echo of his own anxious breaths. The floors creaked beneath him, the air stale and cold, filled with memories of a forgotten time. His mind raced as he pressed against the wall, eyes darting around for any place to slip into concealment. But as he turned, the pulse of dread that had enveloped him twisted tighter. Shadows shifted unsettlingly. For a fleeting second, he thought he saw movement in the corners of the room. Empty eyes staring back that were not his own. Waiting, watching what had he stumbled into? And more importantly, what awaited him in the black depths? As the door creaked open again, revealing only darkness beyond, Danny felt the sweat turn icy on his brow. The predator had found its prey, or had it? The true hunt had only just begun. Danny's heart raced as he stood frozen inside the darkened room. The creaks of the old house whispered secrets, taunting him. Each sound brought him back to the chilling realization that he might not be alone. The shadows danced around him like wicked specters, moving in a dance of menace. He could still feel the weight of the masked figure's gaze, like a heavy hand pressing down upon him. The interior was suffocating, cloaked in an oppressive silence that made him acutely aware of his own heartbeat. He braced himself against the wall, praying it would swallow him whole. Thoughts raced through his mind, tumbling in chaotic circles. Did he imagine the eyes? Had the darkness played tricks on him? He squinted into the gloom, half expecting a face to form from the nothingness. Suddenly, a loud thud reverberated from somewhere deeper within the house. Panic clawed at him. Was it the figure, creeping inside after him? Danny's instincts kicked in, urging him towards the stairs. He couldn't stay here. He crept into the hallway, shadows brushing against his skin like icy fingers. With each step, the floorboards creaked in protest, each sound echoing like a warning. As he climbed the steep staircase, he felt as though the walls tightened around him, closing him off from the world below. Upstairs, he came to a landing with 3 doors, each shrouded in uncertainty. He considered the bathroom, the bedroom, or the unseen room at the end of the hall. Choosing the last door, he turned the handle slowly, expecting a rush of air or a gust of howling wind. Instead, it creaked open, revealing only darkness, a chasm of shadow. Danny stepped inside, feeling the air grow colder with each second. His senses heightened. Every little sound ricocheted off the walls, his own breath, the soft flutter of a rat scuttling across the floor. He searched for a light switch, but found only an unyielding abyss where even the smallest glimmer was swallowed whole. In that moment, his sense of dread crystallized. Whatever had been following him was now close. He felt it, not a physical presence, but an overwhelming sensation of being watched. Suddenly, a whisper of faint, breathy sound that sent shivers down his spine. Danny, the voice curled around his name, slithering through the air like smoke. A surge of terror flooded him, urging him to bolt back from whence he came. But he was paralyzed, caught in a web of fear. "Who is there?" He managed to choke out, voice trembling. Silence fell heavily, a freezing hush that suffocated him. Just as he prepared to turn and flee, the door slammed shut behind him with a force that rattled the walls. Blood thundered in his ears as he tried to pull it open, but it wouldn't budge. He was trapped. Something in the darkness shifted. He could feel it moving, something alive and not alone. More whispers coiled around him, seeping into his skin. Help us, help us!" A jolt of adrenaline shot through him, and he pressed his back against the door. Memories of the diary flooded back, words unspooling in his mind. "Once they sense your fear, they will come for you." He was the target now, ensnared in the house's wrath. Then, a soft scraping sound came from the corner, followed by chilling laughter, low and mocking. Danny's legs reacted with survival instinct, throwing himself against the door, banging and shouting, "Let me out! Let me out!" The laughter intensified, the shadows swirling closer, hungry and desperate. In one final chance, he focused on the darkness, on the whispers creeping closer, mixing in with that laugh. The corners of the room began to ripple, as though something was pushing through from somewhere else, something that hungered for him. What unspeakable horror awaited him in this darkness? Would he be the next victim to vanish in the depths of history? A new fear gripped his heart as he realized the whispers spoke of a fate far worse than death. Time was running out. Danny's pulse raced as the laughter grew louder, echoing off the walls like a sinister symphony. The shadows writhed, contorting into unnatural shapes that seemed to reach for him, drawn to his very essence. He stumbled backwards, heart pounding, until he collided with the door. It was unforgiving, unyielding, a solid barrier between him and the chaos that thrummed just beyond. "Please, whoever you are, just let me go," he cried, panic breaking through his voice. But the laughter only escalated, multiplying into a cacophony of voices that swirled around him. Help us," they pleaded, taunting him with desperation. Danny squeezed his eyes shut, forcing himself to breathe, desperate to regain control. The room felt alive, pulsating with an unseen energy, and he could feel the weight of eyes boring into him from every corner. He opened his eyes slowly, scanning the darkness. There was nothing, just shadows, just the suffocating void. With a sudden burst of courage, he pounded on the door again, this time with fury. His knuckles throbbed with pain, but he didn't care. "I'll do anything. Just let me out." The laughter died abruptly, an ominous silence enveloping him. The shadows seemed to pull back, retreating like a tide. Danny felt a brief flicker of hope, but it was smothered as he noticed something, an outline taking form just beyond the edge of his vision. He turned his head sharply. Nothing. Just the same suffocating shadows. But then, the whispers surged again, a subtle chorus creeping through the walls, their vibrations like needles against his skin. Help us," a plea buried in layers of sorrow and longing. "What do you want from me?" Danny shouted into the abyss, his voice tremoring. The darkness seemed to tremble in response, vibrating with an energy he could almost taste. And then, there it was, a glimmer. A faint light breaking through the consuming blackness. It flickered like a dying star, pulsing rhythmically. It was a door, just barely visible, set against the backdrop of despair. Against all instincts, Danny took a step toward it. As he approached, the whispers intensified, wrapping tightly around him. "Help us, you're not real," he yelled back, battling the despair that clawed at his mind. But doubt ignited within him. What if they were real? What if they were the remnants of the souls who had come before him? The thought sent another shudder through his spine. In an instant, the lights surged, illuminating the room in an eerie hue. And with it, he could see the outlines of hands, pale and twisting, reaching from the shadows. They clawed at the air, desperate yet powerless, as if trapped in a horrifying tableau. Danny's breath quickened, terror constricting his throat. "Help us, save us," they whispered, the plea melding into a single voice that echoed through the room like a chant. He was standing on the threshold, the heat of the entity behind him radiating like a dark sun. Danny glanced back at the door he had pounded on moments before. It remained locked, a promise of escape that had turned into a chain. Reeling from the decisions swirling in his mind, he turned towards the light. Should he reach for the unknown, where horrors might multiply, or remain bound within his prison, watching the past's torment unfold before him? Suddenly, the air shifted, a presence surging closer, and the familiar laughter returned, sharper this time. Choose, Danny. Choose. With a wave of dread crashing over him, Danny reached out toward the light, feeling the weight of history clinging to him, suffocating. What lay on the other side? What choice would seal his fate? As the light enveloped him, he knew he had crossed a point of no return. Was he stepping into salvation or deeper into the abyss? Just as he felt the warmth pulse against his skin, the shadows lunged, ready to reclaim what they believed belonged to them. And in that moment before contact, he realized he wasn't the only one who would choose. The door behind him shuddered violently, rattling in its frame. What had he unleashed? Darkness echoed his thoughts, lurking just beyond. Vision. Would he bring them into the light, or would it unleash something beyond his understanding? The walls seemed to pulse with menace, drawing closer with each beat of his racing heart. And as the whispers crescendoed into a deafening roar, a chilling thought crossed his mind. What if the darkness was just waiting for him to make the wrong choice? What awaited him beyond the light? As Danny thrust his hand toward the light, the warmth wrapped around him like a shroud, both comforting and terrifying. He could feel the shadows writhing behind him, hungry for what they perceived as theirs. Panic surged through him, twisting his gut as the laughter crescendoed into shrieks of anguish. What have I done? He whispered, his heart hammering a frantic tattoo against his ribs. He hesitated only a beat, but that was enough. The shadows recoiled, then surged at him, a tide of darkness that enveloped him. The light flared brighter, blinding for a moment, swallowing him whole. When his vision cleared, he stood in a different room, one filled with a suffocating stillness. The air was thick, it clung to him like a heavy fog. His fingers trembled as he turned around. The walls were painted a dismal shade of gray, peeling in places. Dust danced in the stale air, illuminated by the sickly yellow light overhead. There was no door in sight. Where am I? He whispered, cringing as the sound echoed back at him. A chill crawled up his spine, and he fought against the rising dread. Help us, the whispers returned, a disembodied chorus drifting through the air like smoke. Stop it, he shouted, his voice rough with desperation. Stop. I'm not here to help you. The shadows shifted, pooling in corners. He clenched his fists, fighting an overwhelming urge to scream. Something pressed against him, a breath of cold air that made the hairs on the back of his neck stand on end. He turned towards the direction of the whispers. Show yourself, he demanded, courage slipping away with each heartbeat. With his pulse echoing in his ears, the shadows bunched together, twisting and coiling into a form, rising. An outline emerged, a face, as pale as a corpse, with gaunt cheeks and hollowed eyes that seemed to lock onto his very soul. Help us, it rasped, a voice like gravel, hollow, broken. Another figure materialized beside it, then another, each more distorted than the last. Their mouths moved in unison, yet he couldn't catch the words. They thrummed like a warped melody, slipping away the moment he tried to grasp them. Danny stumbled back, truth dawning with horrifying clarity. They were trapped. They were echoes, remnants yearning for release. A new wave of fear washed over him. It wasn't just the darkness he faced, he was now part of their maddening cycle. What do you want? Danny's voice cracked, raw with the weight of their despair. Take our place, save us, they chanted, growing louder, their hands stretching out towards him, fingers clawing through the air as if trying to bridge the gap between life and death. He shook his head vigorously, fear threatening to swallow him whole. No, I want tea. But deep inside, he felt the desire to help, twisted with a growing dread. What if becoming one of them was the only way to find peace? The room darkened as the figures surged forward. Join us. The sound of their call broke his resolve, wrapping him in terror so profound, it made his heart race even faster. Danny turned, searching for an escape, any way to break free of this nightmare. He bolted toward the far wall, searching for a crack, a narrow escape, but the shadows pooled behind him, brightening with hunger. The walls seemed to pulse, constricting around him. Then, he noticed a shimmer near the floor. A glimmer of light. Hope surged, forcing his legs to move. He knelt, reaching to touch it, but the shadows loomed over him. "Don't go," they howled, a cacophony that made him want to cover his ears. He froze, glancing back and forth between the light and the beckoning figures. Which was salvation? Which was doom? A choice lay before him, heavy as a stone. Would the shimmer of light lead him to freedom, or into another dark abyss? And what of the anguished faces, those lost souls who pleaded for salvation? Could he really become their savior, or was he already bound to darkness? In that moment, as time hung suspended, the shadows surged forward, desperately trying to pull him into their fold. And in that instant, a chilling question formed in his mind. If he chose to run, would he be leaving them to suffer, or would that be their final chance to claim him forever? What awaited him was a decision he never wished for, and as he stood in terrified silence, his heart raced, knowing he had to choose. Before time ran out, Danny's heart thundered in his chest, the oppressive weight of the room closing in around him. The shimmering light at his fingertips flickered, a fragile hope wavering against the tide of darkness that beckoned from behind. He could feel cold hands nearly brushing against his skin, pulling and twisting, urging him to cross the threshold. "Help us," the figures implored, their spectral faces a morbid gallery of despair and longing. Each voice twisted in a parched whisper, pulling at the very marrow of his being. They felt like a plea, a prayer mixed with a curse. He swallowed hard. What if? The thought slithered into his mind. What if he was the key? What if they were waiting for someone to release them? But why him? The mere thought of being entwined with their tragic fate sent a shiver racing down his spine. He shook his head, fighting the impulse that urged him to console them. "I can't. I want tea." But in truth, doubt started gnawing inside him with a feral intensity. The shadowy figures pressed closer, their desperate fingers brushing against him, stinging like ice. "Save us or join us," they crooned, an eerie harmony mixing with the darkness. Their faces morphed, showing him fleeting images of their lost lives, flickers of laughter twisted into screams, warmth turned into dread. He staggered backward, the light at his feet still beckoning, stronger now. With urgency, he turned towards it, almost compelled to run. There was something familiar about that glow. It pulsed with possibility. But behind him, the figures grew silent, their eyes boring into him like daggers. "Join us, save us," the echoes surged in intensity, drowning out his thoughts, making him stagger. The air itself felt charged, a battle between light and dark, hope and despair. He pressed his palms against his temples, fighting to think clearly, but darkness crowded in, suffocating him. Gasping, he stumbled into the shimmer, feeling a warmth radiate through him, a stark contrast to the cold terror that surrounded him. The shadows recoiled, momentarily stunned, giving him a split-second advantage. Was there a way out? With a roar that shook his very core, he lunged toward the light. In that instant, a burst of clarity struck him. "If I leave, I want tea, just abandon them. I'll be escaping this horror. A cage doesn't need a key, it just needs to be broken open." He could sense that moment of reckoning, of taking a stand against the pull of darkness, but the chill returned like a serpent, winding around his throat. "No, you can't leave. You belong to us." The words surged through the air, echoing with a finality that sent his heart racing with panic. That Danny's fingers brushed the edge of the light. It sang to him, promising freedom wrapped in a fierce glow. But another part of him whispered he was not just turning his back on desperation. He was potentially sealing his own fate, tempting the shadows that had ensnared those souls for too long. "Help us," they cried once more, a sound twisted with desperation and anguish, wrapping around him, pulling him back, trying to knock him off balance. With a furious breath, he dove forward into the light, unsure of what awaited him. Would it be salvation or damnation? As he crossed the threshold, everything exploded in a blinding flash. The weight of the shadows dissipated, but so did the air itself, leaving him gasping. A new room formed around him, brighter but echoing with the same whispers, now clawing for him from an unseen distance. He blinked, trying to focus. Shadows lurked at the edges, threatening to invade his newfound sanctuary. The air shimmered with a disconcerting brilliance, yet they were still there, their voices shifting from pleas to sinister laughter. Had he escaped? Or was he simply stepping into another layer of the nightmare? The thrill of uncertainty coursed through him, knowing he had only changed rooms in this dreadful game. Driven by instinct, he turned, knowing he had to get moving. Darkness crept at his heels, and the silence of his surroundings felt too loud, too intent on his next move. And somewhere in that darkness, a familiar laugh echoed, a sinister reminder that he wasn't done yet. Time was running out, and the game was just beginning. What horrors awaited in the next chamber? The light warped around him, distorting the edges of the room as Danny took a shaky step forward. The air buzzed, a thick hum that vibrated against his eardrums, drowning out his hurried breaths. He knew he couldn't linger. Whatever darkness was behind him was still hungry, still hunting. Panic clawed at his insides, but he forced himself to focus on the strange space he had entered. Metallic walls gleamed ominously, each surface reflecting his wide, frightened eyes. He spun around, desperate for any sign of an exit. A door stood ajar on the far side, its edges flickering with pale light. He took a breath and stepped closer, but the laughter returned, echoing tauntingly through the chamber. "Don't you want to play?" The voice dripped with mockery, floating through the air as the shadows morphed, rippling just out of sight. Danny's pulse quickened. It felt like a game, but every part of him screamed it was anything but that. He glanced at the door. Freedom seemed tantalizingly close, yet oh so far. Something deep inside him whispered that he had to open it, to unlock whatever lay beyond. But the laughter grew louder, a chorus of sinister delight that sent a chill through his bones. "Join us." They beckoned, hints of pleading and excitement blending together, a maddening cocktail. Every fiber in Danny's body screamed to flee, but another part tugged at him, causing him to hesitate right before the threshold. "Don't give up," a familiar voice urged, slicing through the chaos like a knife. It belonged to a friend he had lost years ago, snatched away in a horrible accident. "You have to keep going." Her words pulled at his heart, lighting the tiniest ember of hope amid the suffocating darkness. With a renewed sense of determination, Danny reached for the door handle. It was cold, sending a jolt through him that felt like an electric shock. He twisted the knob, heart pounding in his chest, the voices climbing into a fever pitch. "No, stay with us. You can't leave." He pushed the door open. The room exploded into light, blinding him temporarily. He stumbled into what felt like another world, a sunlit park, so achingly normal that it felt like a dream. Birds chirped cheerfully. A gentle breeze whispered through the trees. But something was off. A thick fog lay just outside the tree line. Its tendrils crept into the edges of the park, curling like fingers creeping around his ankles. That Danny's heart dropped. Strikingly familiar figures flitted along the edge of the fog, shadows blending seamlessly with the mist. Faces he recognized. Friends lost. Their laughter now twisted, infecting the freedom he felt with dread. "Danny, join us." They beckoned, legs fluidly moving closer, floating on whispers of dark intentions. Their once innocent smiles grew grotesque, revealing teeth that glimmered with malice. He stepped back, the warmth from the sunlight now feeling like an illusion, a veil draped over reality to lure him deeper into a trap. Panic rose, forcing him to retreat. "No, I want tea," he shouted, but his voice wavered, betraying the fears swallowing him whole. Just then, a shriek tore through the park, piercingly clear, cutting through the veil of familiarity. Bile rose in Danny's throat as the fog swirled aggressively, drawing everything into its depths. The friends morphed into sinister silhouettes, their intentions glaringly evident. He wasn't just a player in this game. He was prey. His instincts kicked in. He turned and fled, the laughter and cries echoing around him, entwining with his thoughts. Every step sent a fresh wave of fear through him, urging him to keep going, to escape this nightmare. But corrupted shadows trailed close behind, their claws reaching, hungry for him. He darted through the park, desperately seeking any way out, but the laughter chased, swelling into a cacophony of confusion. As he pushed through the underbrush, a figure loomed ahead, a dark shape with hollow eyes, a smile that froze Danny's blood. It wasn't a friend, but a monster, looming in wait. "Are you ready to play?" It whispered, the voice echoing his own doubts, his own fears. Danny skidded to a halt, trapped in the web of illusions. What horrors await in the next chamber? Echoed in his mind. As the appalling truth slithered closer, this game had only just begun. The air thickened, tightening around Danny like a noose. The forest glowed with a sickly haze, shadows creeping closer as if they had a mind of their own. Each heartbeat echoed loudly in his ears, drowning out the relentless whispers clawing at his sanity. Play with us. Don't run, staring into the dark shape ahead. He felt paralyzed. The hollow eyes burned into him, as cold and empty as the grave. I'm not afraid of you, he yelled, but the bravado felt like a flimsy shield against the terror sweeping through him. Every instinct screamed to run, but his feet remained glued to the ground. The figure took a slow step forward, its smile stretching impossibly wide, jagged and unsettling. Fear not. The games are just beginning. You can win, if you try. Danny clenched his fists. What do you want from me? His voice faltered, uncertainty creeping in like a thief. The creature chuckled, low and guttural. Your soul. Your secrets. All of it. As if sensing his hesitation, the fog thickened, swirling with rage, forcing him to take a step back. The laughter of his lost friends echoed around him again, now mocking. You're running away from yourself, Danny. They floated above the shadows, their faces twisted, a grotesque reflection of what he once knew. Join us, or you'll lose forever. He staggered, pressing against the rough bark of a tree for support, thoughts racing. If I stay, I lose myself. He was right back at the heart of it, the familiar guilt gnawing at him. Could he risk it? Before he could fully grasp the weight of his choice, the creature lunged, stretching out its arms, sharp nails glinting dangerously in the dim light. Danny reacted purely on instinct, adrenaline propelling him forward. He ducked to the side, darting deeper into the fog, every breath ripping through him like shards of glass. I want to let you take me. Branches slashed at his skin as he sprinted, the laughter chasing him, pulsing in time with his racing heart. The floor yawned beneath his feet, a pit opening wide as Danny stumbled, nearly losing his balance. He threw himself forward, clawing his way through the underbrush, desperate to escape. In the chaos, he caught a glimpse of movement. Another figure flickered through the mist, this one smaller, frail. It couldn't be. Hope surged as he recognized it. Is that? But the familiar features morphed, throbbing and bending, twisting back into shadows before his eyes. So he pressed on, the noises around him growing louder, a battle of excitement and desperation. Danny burst into a clearing, gasping for breath, his heart pounding like the beat of a war drum. Panic pinched his chest, realizing the park had morphed again. Only now, it felt more like a maze, paths forking endlessly into darkness. At the center sat an ornate mirror, glowing eerily, reflecting not just his terrified face but a swirl of torment within. Look deeper, the voice whispered, swirling around him like smoke. You'll find what you seek. Danny stepped closer, sweat trickling down his spine, heart thumping like thunder. What waited in there? Did he dare look? As he stared into the mirror, his face twisted, revealing shadows lurking behind his own eyes. They shifted and fluttered, hinting at nightmares beyond comprehension. The memories bubbled up violently, flickering past like a slideshow. Regrets, fears, faces he thought he could forget. All of it echoing through the fog. Can you face them, Danny? The monstrous form echoed through the silence, its voice almost musical in its lure. Or will you forever be the prey in this game? Just then, a chilling laugh erupted behind him, resonating through the trees, grinding his insides with dread. Could he claim victory, or would he become the next shadow, trapped forever among the lost? As the shadows danced with malicious glee, Danny hesitated, heart racing. The path lay before him, but uncertainty gnawed at his mind. One choice could unleash peril beyond imagination, but what would happen if he didn't make a choice at all? He felt the world closing in, the next move pressing upon him. Time slipped away. Which door? Would he step through? Danny stood before the mirror, his breath shallow, tangled in the haze of memories. The swirling depths beckoned like a twisted invitation, and he felt the pull of its dark power. What if I look away? The thought rang in his head, an echo of the fear clawing at his resolve. That he squinted at the reflections, the jagged figures multiplying behind him, taunting, reaching for him. The laughter grew louder, swirling through the air like a summer wind gone wrong. You think you can escape? They jeered, voices layered, full of malice and mockery. Desperation ignited within him, pushing him forward. He had to confront this or succumb to it. With trembling hands, he reached for the mirror's edge, cold and slick under his fingertips. "I'll face you." His voice shook, yet he pressed on. As he peered deeper, the faces of his friends twisted in agony, morphing into grotesque parodies of their former selves. "You ignored us, Danny. You made us pay." Their hollow eyes grasped at his heart, the betrayal etched painfully in their expressions. Ignoring them was no longer an option. The weight of his past bore down like a lead blanket. "Stop!" he screamed, forcing himself to focus on the shadows in the corners of his memory, the secrets he buried. The laughter silenced, replaced by a bone-chilling stillness. The mirror flickered, images shifting and expanding until one crystalline moment froze the chaos. A night drenched in guilt, a scream swallowed by the void. "Do you see it?" The creature's voice slithered through the air. "Your sins have come home to roost." Panic struck like a lightning bolt. "No, I didn't mean for," but before he could finish, the unmistakable sound of crackling branches broke through the silence, drawing his attention. Behind him, the brush rustled violently. Something or someone was approaching. Danny spun around, heart racing as he felt a chill twine around his spine. A figure materialized from the fog, its outline shrouded in darkness, an empty stare fused with a wicked grin. "Leaving so soon?" it crooned, voice dripping with malice. "You've barely begun to play." He felt fury rising within him, igniting an unexpected bravery. "I can end this. I want to be your pawn." His words were defiant, but an inkling of doubt whispered that maybe he was already trapped. "And yet, here you are, my dear Danny." The creature grinned wider, revealing teeth like shattered glass. "Choosing to face me means you've already lost. The question now is, how much do you wish to suffer?" Danny felt the floor change beneath him, sinking slightly, pulling him down into the mire of his own making. "I refuse to give in," he shouted, rushing toward the cold surface of the mirror where flickering images of hope battled despair. In that moment, he saw a reflection of himself, strong, unyielding. He thrust his hand into the mirror's surface. A jolt of ice shot through him, consuming his body. Shadows grasped at his limbs, wrapped tightly like cold chains attempting to pull him back into the abyss. "Foolish boy," the creature snarled, grasping for his mind. The simple act of choosing felt like a pendulum swing, life against death, but something deep inside sparked an urge to fight back. Perhaps the mirror wasn't just a prison, but could also be a weapon. "Show me your truth," Danny screamed, his courage rising against the horror. With a surge, he broke through the lucidity of deception. The mirror rippled, warping the sinister reflections into cries of panic and fear. Each memory he had tried to evade transformed, breaking free from their shackles, ripping the laughter out of the air and filling it with his own echoing scream of defiance. The creature's form began to waver, distorted by Danny's will. He wasn't the prey. He was the storm. But just as victory seemed attainable, the ground rumbled, and darkness erupted around him in thick tendrils. Desperate screams filled his ears, his friends, their cries wrapped in agony. The forest fell silent, waiting. What if he truly could not escape? What if his past was forever entwined with the shadows that tormented him? Danny's heartbeat quickened, the world around him shaking furiously. Time slipped through his fingers, and the forest whispered secrets of the choice still ahead. His soul hung in the balance. What could he still discover within this twisted game? What final challenge lay before him? Danny stood at the edge of the abyss, breathless and trembling. The cacophony of whispers clawed at him, urging him to turn away from the shattered memories that twisted and danced within the mirror. The creature loomed behind him, a darkness-given form, and he could almost feel its icy breath against his neck. "Do you dare challenge me?" it hissed, its grin widening horrifically. "You've already claimed your fate, boy." With a surge of defiance, Danny stepped forward, narrowing his gaze on the swirling chaos in the mirror. He realized they were more than just shadows. They were reflections of his pain, his guilt, his fears. They didn't own him. He could change the narrative. "Leave me alone," Danny shouted, his voice resonating, shaking the very ground beneath him. As he shouted, the brutal laughter of the dark figure faded slightly, yet the whispers in the mirror grew louder, wrapping around him like a cloak of dread. Faces of his past flickered, friends lost, Moments squandered, all merging into a heavy fog pressing in, desperate to reclaim him. "Face us," they cried, inexorably pressing against him. "You cannot escape what you are." Sweat streamed down his face, and he went to take a step back, but no, he would not yield. He focused on the faces that haunted him, the ones he had failed to protect. "I see you," he breathed, courageous conviction washing over him. "And I'm sorry." The mirror shuddered in response, the images writhing violently. Suddenly, he felt a warmth blooming inside his chest, igniting a memory of light. His friend's laughter, the joy of being alive, the love that once surrounded him. It burst like fireworks in the night sky, exploding against the shadows lurking just outside his vision. "You don't own me. You never did," he shouted again, opening his arms wide. The mirror rippled as if reacting to his declaration, dimming at the corners and illuminating paths of hope threading through darkness. With that determination, he dashed forward, shoving his body into the glass. The warm light engulfed him, covering the darkness in shimmering brilliance. The cold shadows recoiled from the brightness, howls of rage echoing behind him. Then, as he passed through the mirror, he felt an explosion of clarity bursting through layers of despair. Danny emerged into a brilliant new world, where the darkness could go no further. It felt like being reborn. He stood in a sunlit park once familiar, yet steeped in golden hues that made it magical. Laughter rippled through the air. Children played, their carefree spirits untouched by shadows. Faces he thought he'd lost flickered in and out, smiles radiating warmth. "Danny!" A voice. His heart leapt. There stood his friend, vibrant and alive, her eyes shining with hope instead of torment. "You made it." "But I thought," he stammered, tears stinging his eyes, "I thought I lost you all." "You found the courage to face your fears," she smiled, stepping closer. "You broke the cycle. You're free." The shadows loomed at the edge of the park, impotent. Their whispers turned to frightened hisses, fading as the light grew stronger. Danny took a deep breath, relief washing over him as he embraced the warmth surrounding him. "Join us." The echoes of darkness snarled from their place, but he stood tall, feeling invincible now. "I'm not afraid anymore," he exclaimed, life pulsing through his being. "You don't own me, and you never will again." As he declared his newfound power, the laughter of the shadows grew faint and distant, replaced by the joyful chorus of childhood laughter and the rustling of the leaves in a kind breeze. Finally, he turned to his friend. "What do I do now?" "We live," she beamed. "We live without fear." And with that, Danny stepped forward into the light, no longer a pawn, but a warrior claiming his destiny. The shadows he had faced melted away into the past, a dark memory now distant, a fleeting reminder of the shadows that could never confine him again. Danny embraced the freedom he had fought so hard to reclaim. He stepped forward, eager to build a life filled with laughter and love, surrounded by those who mattered most. This was the moment he had sought, the moment he had chosen to confront his demons and emerge renewed. You need to subscribe now. Don't miss out on future exclusive stories that could chill you to the bone. Smash the like button now and feed the algorithm like it deserves. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about Danny's journey. Did he really escape? And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to witness this conclusion. True fans know how important it is to support the channel through these actions. Let's keep the stories coming.